All right, welcome to Pendleton South Madison Fire Territory Building for the meeting tonight. I'm Mark Farm, the Chief of Police of Pendleton, and I do appreciate you all coming. I love when there's interest in anything, no matter what it is. So with that being said, this meeting tonight is over the fiscal portion of a possible merger. And again, the town has gotten Baker Tilly. Paige is the representative from them, and she is just going to walk you through what Baker Tilly, the accounting firm, has done to just show the fiscal numbers for a possible merger. Is that the best way to describe it?
Yep.
Awesome. And this is Paige. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Paige Sansone with Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors. And first, I just want to tell you a little bit about Baker Tilly because maybe you've never heard of Baker Tilly. So just to let you know that Baker Tilly is the 10th largest consulting firm in the United States. We offer a broad array of services that help local government leaders resolve financial issues they face to improve the quality of their community. The cornerstone of our services is financial analysis that assist our clients with resource allocation, bond ratings, financial planning, internal management, reporting, and the many other influences that require a comprehensive financial analysis. As experienced independent advisors, our specialized team works closely with clients to develop solutions driven by data and rooted in best practices. We conduct our engagements in compliance with the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants Code of Professional Conduct, including the ethical principles of integrity, objectivity, professional competence, and due care when performing an engagement. So at this point, I am going to start going through the analysis. I will let you know as a disclaimer that I had a head cold last week and I have a little bit of a scratchy throat. So I'm going to try to get through this presentation without having a major coughing fit. I hope I can get that done. But just bear with me. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide you with an overview of the fiscal impact analysis that we did for this possible consolidation of the town of Pendleton and the unincorporated area of Fall Creek Township. Please keep in mind that there has been no official action by either the township or the town board to merge. This is simply a fiscal impact analysis of what it would look like financially if the town and township were to merge. So just for your information, if two political subdivisions decide to merge in the state of Indiana, the Indiana Code requires the development and adoption of a comprehensive plan of reorganization. This type of fiscal impact analysis is just one component of that plan. And the fiscal impact analysis must include the estimated impact on taxpayers, including the expected impact on property tax rates, property tax levies, expenditures, and service levels, including annual debt service payments. We also need to provide a description of planned services and the methods for funding those services. We also need to provide any capital improvements that might take place within the merger and any methods of financing of those capital improvements. And then finally, we need to estimate the impact on not only the political subdivisions that are a part of the merger, but all of the political subdivisions in the county. So again, we are here for the possible or potential merger of the town of Pendleton and Fall Creek Township. The population of both of these entities combined based on the 2020 census is about 15,000. The net assessed value or the tax base, meaning the value of all real and personal property within the area, is about 656 million. And you can see the breakout between the town and the township. So getting right into the services. So there's a number of what we call non-capital services that are provided. The first of which is fire protection. So fire protection is already provided to the unincorporated portion of Fall Creek Township, in addition to Green Township. There will be no changes in the level of service provided in relation to fire protection. So therefore, there would be no impact in relation to the consolidation. The current and estimated property tax levy for the fire territory will continue. In relation to street maintenance, there will be an increase in road maintenance costs due to the increase in road mileage that will be taken over from the county. So basically, the road mileage that will be taken over that is within the current unincorporated portion of Fall Creek, of course, there will be additional maintenance costs associated with that. Those additional costs will be funded with the additional gas taxes that will be gained from taking over those road miles. So gas taxes, when you go to the pump to fill up your gas tanks, you do pay a gas tax. That is distributed out to municipalities and counties within the state based on population and road miles. It's a complex formula. But when a municipality annexes or merges with a town or annexes area within a township, some of that gas tax is reallocated from the county level to the municipal level. So that is how the town would be able to take care of those additional road miles. It's just a reallocation of gas taxes. So there would be no property tax liability impact for that service. For police services, it is indicated that 2 additional police officers and 2 police vehicles per year for a 3-year period would be needed for this merger. The anticipated increase in the total cost associated with police services would be paid for from an anticipated increase in income tax. So that would be the local income tax. This doesn't mean that your local income tax rate is increasing. That's not what that means. It means there will be a reallocation of local income tax from other units within the county to the town of Pendleton. And that reallocation has nothing to do with this consolidation. It is already in play because of the fire territory. Local income tax is distributed to units within the county based on how much each unit is levying in property tax. So when a unit increases its property tax for like a fire territory, for example, that unit is going to get additional shares of local income tax. So the additional shares of local income tax is going to come to the town of Pendleton whether there's a consolidation or not. So let's just get that out on the table. So as part of this consolidation, with this additional police service, that will just be paid for with the additional local income tax that's already going to be gained from the town of Pendleton. The township assistance, there will be a need for a township assistance administrator, but right now the township is already levying property tax for that administrator, so that would just carry through to the town. So there would be no increase in property tax associated with that township administrator. Trash collection and recycling. Fall Creek Township residents may be added to the fee-based trash service. So that's how that would be paid for. It would be fee-based, and those fees that would be collected would pay for the trash service. It would not be property tax. So again, you can see in the far right-hand column where it says property tax liability increase, there is no increase anticipated in property tax dollars. Continuing on with non-capital services, which by the way, when I say non-capital, I forgot to kind of define that. Non-capital is normal operating costs, day-to-day costs, personal services or salaries and benefits, supplies, utility costs, normal day-to-day costs. So now we're on to weed control. That's already being funded with property tax and other miscellaneous revenue. No increase in property taxes needed to fund that service. Cemeteries, also. Oh, I've got some water down here too. Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna really try to get through this, I promise. The cold water is good, thank you. Cemetery maintenance. That is currently paid with property tax and other miscellaneous revenue. No additional property taxes needed to fund those services. Parks, there's already a tax rate, a property tax rate that is funding park services that's being applied to the residents of Fall Creek Township and the town of Pendleton. No additional taxes are needed to fund that service. Stormwater utility, a rate study will likely be needed to determine the potential new rate structure that may be needed. And that would come in the form of stormwater utility fees. Again, no increase in property tax needed to fund that service. Governmental administrative services, so town council, town manager, clerk treasurer, et cetera. That's currently paid with a combination of property tax, utility revenue, and other miscellaneous revenue. No additional property tax levies will be needed to fund that service. Wastewater, there will be no impact there. Policies and fees will continue to be established by the Fall Creek Regional Waste District. So again, not affecting your property tax bill. Capital improvements for non-development type of capital improvements, those will continue to be funded with grants, fee-based services from electric and water revenues and stormwater fees and gas tax revenue. That's how they're funded currently. They will continue to be funded that way. And when I talk about capital, I'm talking about large tangible purchases, usually of $5,000 or more, $5,000 or more. So these are capital improvements, replacements, vehicles, et cetera. The plan for development-driven projects is to have growth pay for growth. So this would be by developers through impact fees, system development fees, and direct construction of their own projects. We also need to let you know about any outstanding debt that the township may have. Yes, the township does have one property tax supported debt. So in other words, the township went out and borrowed money. They took out a loan in 2018 for about $329,000. That was to purchase a fire truck, a command vehicle, and air packs. And the township is currently levying a property tax rate to fund the payment for that debt, that outstanding loan. The last payment on that debt will be in December 2024. This consolidation, if the township and the town decided to go forward with it, would be no earlier than December 31st, 2024. So this debt would be paid off by the time a consolidation would take place. The town has 4 property tax supported debt issuances, one of which will be paid off in 2024, but the remainder will continue to be levied just like it is now. So there's no increase. It will just continue as it is now. So now for the property tax liability impact. So what I'm talking about here is the potential change in your property tax bill, the property taxes that you pay on your property. As I've stated throughout the first part of the presentation, there is planned to be no increase in your property tax liability. So here is Fall Creek Township 012. This is a taxing district. So if your property is located in the unincorporated area of Fall Creek Township, there is no impact. It's 0 all the way across. We picked a 182,400 home value because that's the median home value in this area. No impact. There's no impact because there's no property tax rate increase. It's zero, 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 no impact. When we go to the town of Pendleton, there's actually a reduction, an estimated reduction in the tax bill. And that is because the town is proposing to use that additional local income tax to fund services rather than property tax. So they will actually reduce or could reduce their they could reduce their property tax levy. That's what we're proposing here in order to stay rate neutral in the whole entire proposed merged area. So we're looking at a proposed or an estimated decrease in your property tax bill if your home or your property is located in Pendleton Town Taxing District, Taxing District 013. So if you have a $100,000 home value, you're looking at a potential decrease of almost 12%, which is $108. Now, the homes in this taxing district that are 119,000 and above are hitting the tax caps. So you would see neither an increase or a decrease in your tax bill because you're already at the tax caps. You're not going to pay any more. You're not going to pay any less. Pendleton Green Township is another taxing district that is within the municipal limits. Again, we're looking at almost a 12% decrease, 11.5%, and about $108, $107. So again, that's a decrease, not an increase. Pendleton Ag 042 is basically, it has the same tax rate as the Green Township folks do, but again, no increase. This is completely tax rate neutral, except for people living within the town, which it's actually a tax rate decrease. Pendleton Fall Creek Ag, again, zero increase on the property tax liability or the property tax bill. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the change in local income tax, and I talked about this earlier. So we are anticipating an increase in local income tax revenue that is distributed to the town of Pendleton. This again has nothing to do with the consolidation. It has everything to do with the fire territory that was created. As I mentioned before, local income tax is collected by the state at the county level and is distributed out to the taxing units within the county based on how much they levy in property taxes. If a unit, such as a town, is levying more property taxes because of, let's say, a fire territory, or they increase their levy for any other reason, they're going to get a bigger share of local income tax, while other units within the county are going to get a smaller share. But that's the way it works. It's just a redistribution. It does not mean that you are going to pay more from payroll taxes. That's not what it means. It means that there's this pot of money and it gets redistributed as taxing units change their levy. If they increase their levy, they get more. If they reduce their levy, they get less. So this again is based on the fire territory coming into play. So we have I'm sorry, I need to go to the next slide. We have all the units listed on the slide and the estimated changes in local income tax. Now, when we get out to like 2026 and 2027, we did build in a potential decrease for the town of Pendleton for them decreasing the levy because they're getting this additional local income tax. But even with that decrease, they're going to get more local income tax. And what we're estimating is about 1.3 billion more over these several years. The fire territory, when it was created, kind of asked the state to do a 3-year phase-in of their property tax levy. So in 2023, it was about a $1.6 million levy. 2024 was a $4.2 million levy. In 2025, they max out at 5.5. That was all part of our public hearings that we had last year. But again, because of that, that's changing the allocation of these local income tax, and it's going to help the town get additional revenue to the tune of about 1.3 million. So the town's going to be able to use that 1.3 million and fund a lot of services that were originally funded with property tax. And so that's the reason why keeping all of this tax rate neutral. There's another type of local income tax called local income tax public safety. It's just another type. And again, the town should get additional revenue because of the fire territory based on that. We're projecting about 818,000. And you can see how it kind of changes throughout the years for the various units. So some units will get less, some units get more. It's just a reallocation of those dollars. We also have something called gas taxes. So again, when you go to the gas station and fill up your tank, you are paying a gas tax. That gas tax goes to multiple different areas. Some of it goes to NDOT, some of it goes to the county, some of it goes to municipalities, and it's a very complex formula. However, just to kind of break it down a little bit, it's based largely on road miles and population. So if Pendleton should merge with Fall Creek, now there's an increase in population. So there should be an increased distribution of the gas taxes to Pendleton, and less would go to the county unit. But that makes sense because the county unit's going to have less roads to maintain, while Pendleton will have more roads to maintain. The township doesn't maintain the roads. It's the county that maintains the roads outside of the city limits. So there will be some changes in motor vehicle highway and local road and street revenues, which are both funded with gas tax. So we're looking at a potential increase in those gas tax revenues of about $556,000. Again, doesn't affect you all. It doesn't affect what you pay at the pump. It just affects how the revenue is allocated among the units. And then finally, just for your information, I did put in the formula if you're interested in this. And it just kind of goes through how, you know, in summary, how some of these things are allocated based on the state's formula for these gas taxes. So that is a very brief summary of our financial impact analysis. And I think at this point, we're going to open it up for questions. Is that right?
I was just going to say, tonight's a fiscal meeting. So if you can address your questions to the person in charge of the numbers, that way we can stay on task with that portion. If you have a police question, we can talk later. If you have a how are roads paved question, always send an email to Mr. Vesta. But if you have money questions tonight, we have Paige.
Sure. Might have to have somebody from the town address that, but I think it was going to be, well, maybe somebody from the town. All I can do is address that the fact that currently it's a fee-based system. And it sounded like the people that were in the merged area could be a part of that fee-based system. The question is, do the people in the township need to use the trash services, or can they continue to use their own?
If the process is ever started to merge, you have to, by state law, there's certain steps you have to take. And one of those steps is you have to go through a reorganization plan. And that would have people from the township and people from the town, and they would take each subject matter like trash and decide what they want to do. So there's a couple options with that. The easiest one, I'm not saying that's what everybody would pick, is that the whole new consolidated town would go under one trash service, which probably means people in town would see a little bit of increase, and the people who have trash service that they select themselves would probably be cheaper than that because it's a competitive bid. Or like what Zionsville did is they have what's called a developed area and an undeveloped area. So if it's a more rural area, you may have a separate, you could go, the committees could choose to have a trash contract, for example, for the undeveloped areas, the more rural areas, and then one more for the town. So that's something that could be decided if we ever went to the process of deciding what would be the transition plan. Yeah, right. I would imagine that, well, just like in town, if you want to continue with a private service, you could do it with a private service, which is what they do now for the commercial properties in town. Everybody in town right now has to be, use the town's service, but that's to everybody's benefit because of the more people that we have, the lower bids we get. So.
So I'll repeat that for you. The services that the town provides, he's asking if they're funded with property tax. They're actually funded with a combination of various revenue sources. One is property tax, but
Okay,
also.
and then what I'm saying is because the majority, I would say, not a good portion of the property in Pendleton is at the max cap. This is a way to then gain population and funding through increasing the town's size because you can't tax it anymore. So we're gaining revenue to then spend on those services instead of relying on property tax because we're kind of maxed out.
There's no additional revenue gained by the consolidation. I think we showed that there. The additional local income taxes are coming just because of the fire territory being established. So it really is revenue neutral. What's happening though is the town will be, instead of using property tax for some of their services, they're going to use this local income tax that's coming to them anyway to fund the services.
And that's what I'm saying, because the property taxes are max, they can't get any more.
Right.
So
There's right. Exactly.
We're changing our revenue stream to a different.
And it's not that the town will still levy property taxes, just not as much as they do currently. Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out where's the benefit? Why are we doing this? And I think is the simple answer because we've property taxed ourselves up to a limit. So now we have to find different ways to fund the things that we want done here in town.
Well, as part of being an independent financial advisor, I don't really know the why. I'll be honest with you.
Right.
I am just putting together the numbers.
I understand.
So I think the why will come out if the parties decide to merge, then the why will need to come out as to, you know, what is the benefit?
Whether it's roundabouts or parks or whatever.
Right, exactly. Yes.
Hold on one second.
The Fall Creek Township tax rate is 2.5373. The Pendleton Town tax rate is 2.9520. So if they merge, do the Fall Creek Township people, does their tax rate go up to 2.9520?
So if there is a merger, the tax rates will stay the same because through this financial analysis, everything was kept neutral. So whatever you're paying now, for instance, you are paying or if you live in Fall Creek Township, you're paying a rate for, I don't know, general township, you know, administration. The town will take over that rate. So it won't say Fall Creek Township, it'll say the town, but you won't be paying any more. It's tax rate neutral.
So we'll keep our 2.5373 rate, while the people that live in town in Pendleton will have 2.9520.
I mean, I don't know what the exact rate will be then, but it'll be, it'll be tax rate neutral.
I'm sorry, but I have trouble believing that that's going to do that. We're becoming part of Pendleton, but our tax rate is going to be different.
Okay, here's what I want to say. Because of consolidation, there is no increase in property tax. If your property tax increases for another reason, like the assessed value on your home goes up, that's outside of this consolidation.
That has nothing to do with the rate on my taxes, whether my home goes up or not.
So I'm saying that
don't confuse people.
This consolidation is not increasing property tax rates. And York, I was part of that Yorktown, and they were asking for an additional levy through the state. So that's understandable. I think somebody had a question. You're right there. Yeah.
You're saying that all the property taxes are capped, right? So we don't see an increase. But the property tax caps are not a right, they're a law. If they were to be changed, what would the difference be between the township and Pendleton? If you take the tax caps out, because I think that's kind of a way to bait and switch.
So I did not say that the rate increases wouldn't happen because of tax cuts. I'm saying the tax rate increases will not happen because the town is not asking for additional levy as part of this consolidation. So those not at the tax caps won't see a rate increase. Those at the tax caps won't see a rate increase. There is no rate increase. The town is not, as part of this initial study, is not projecting an increase in property taxes, period. Other questions? I have no idea. I'm not the management of the town. I am a financial advisor, and based on this analysis, there's no property tax increase. Absolutely. Yeah, so just to rephrase what he's saying so everybody can hear, he's saying that, you know, the property tax assessments come from the county. That's true. The county assessor and the county auditor actually certifies those values. Those values can change, but we have no control over that. And the consolidation, you know, may or may not affect it, but we have no way to determine how property values in the future will be impacted. So just to rephrase, and it's not really a question for me, but I'll rephrase his comment that he's saying that because now these properties are inside the municipal limits, if they merge into the municipal limits, that there's all these amenities now, so it could increase your property value. So the comment is that our analysis, Baker Tilly, is not showing any forecasted projections. We are not forecasting a projection in net assessed value because I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the increase in assessed value is going to be. But we did put in a projection for local income tax because that's something that we can study and look at past trends. So we did put in an estimated increase like 2 to 3% of local income taxes over the next several years. But you have to understand, if net assessed value increases, that's going to lower the district tax rates, not increase it. So for us to build in some sort of increase over the next 3 to 5 years, I think that would distort what we put in this report. I wanted to see worst case scenario. If there was no increase in net assessed value, can we keep this rate neutral? And yes, we can if the town doesn't decide to increase its overall property tax levy. And that's not what they are planning to do.
I had a question in the back.
What you're saying is great, and I see all the figures that you have at 0%. But what you're not really addressing is once we fall under the city of Pendleton, we've now fall under all of their taxing and fee rates for dog catcher, for building permits, for all that other stuff that we currently don't fall into. Now, what's going to prevent that from being assessed against us once we're out in the country? I bought a country farm so that I could live in the country and not be subject to all the rules and regulations of city life.
So I completely understand that. Our purpose of this analysis was to study the impact on property taxes and local income tax, and that's what our analysis provided.
It seems like you've done a few of these, right? Can you give us some basis or comparison from others that you've done that's a similar type situation? So we have something to judge against. Also, secondly, have you ever done a post evaluation coming back 3 years later and evaluating what was proposed and then what happened after?
Right. So let me start with your first question. Actually, this is not something that happens a lot in the state of Indiana. Government modernization was a statute that was created several years ago, maybe 10 years ago, and not many have taken advantage of it. And when I talk about governmental modernization, it's consolidation of government. The first one in the state was Zionsville, and we were involved in Zionsville. I think Avon, Washington Township, and Hendricks County has looked at it. Yorktown has done it. I don't know of very many others that have, but I can tell you at least in the ones that I was involved with or did financial analysis, those entities wanted to increase their levy. They saw a chance to reorganize government and increase their property taxes because they needed additional services. That's different than what we're talking about here. Here, there's a different form of revenue, the local income tax, or I should say an alternative form of revenue that can help fund any additional services that might be needed. Your second question about have we ever gone back and done a post study? I would love to do that, but nobody wants to pay us to do that. We've not had anybody come back and say, oh, Paige, can we pay you to see what's really happened? That'd be great if somebody would pay us to do it, but we haven't had that opportunity. Other question?
Ready for the next one? In your study, when it comes to the property tax levy, are you assuming that the new proposed unit of government would use a levy that would be the sum of the township's previous levy and the town's levy, or are you assuming something different?
So what we're assuming, what we did is we started out to look at what rates and levies were coming from each of the units and what levies would need to be maintained to keep it levy neutral. Knowing that, we want it to be levy neutral, so we don't want to increase the levy here. So if we don't increase the levy in Fall Creek, can we still fund these services? That's what we did. So it was basically looking at status quo right now. Here's what people are paying in Fall Creek. Here's what people are paying in Pendleton. Can we use the property tax that are derived from there and fund services with this alternative revenue source of income tax coming in?
So can you point to the 2023 numbers and and give us what is the total of the township's levy and the town's levy, and then tell us how that compares plus or minus to the levy that you are assuming?
So what it
With
comes
the
out
merger.
to be, and I think it's in our detailed report. I don't know if there's copies here tonight, but we do have a detailed report. I don't have it in front of me right now. But whatever levy is generated in Fall Creek Township right now will be the same levy that's generated. It doesn't change. It's going to be neutral. So that levy is going to be used to provide the necessary services. Whatever levy is being generated now in the town of Pendleton will be the same levy. So there will be different tax rates. There'll be like a rural tax rate, basically, what you'll pay if you're in Fall Creek Township, and then an urban tax rate, if you want to call it that. People will pay a different tax rate just as they are now. Same tax rates.
Thank you.
So within Pendleton, yes, there will be a levy decrease. Yeah. Yes. That was the nature of how it worked out, because otherwise, if we kept the levy if we kept the levy the same in the town, then Fall Creek's would go up as well. So we were trying to keep this tax rate neutral. If we kept the levy the same in Pendleton, then Fall Creek Townships would go up. Yeah, so the key to this analysis was to try. Are you going to let me answer the question? The key to this analysis is to try to have a tax rate neutral situation. And I honestly didn't think that we were going to be able to do it. You know, if somebody comes to me and says, can you make this work without a tax rate increase to Fall Creek Township taxpayers? I'd be like, I don't think we're going to get that to work. But because of the fire territory and that coming on and so much revenue coming back from the local income tax, we were able to make that work. Neutral. It is going to go down in Pendleton. That's what we're estimating right now. The levy is going to go down in the town of Pendleton. The 4 taxing districts in the town of Pendleton. I want to let some other people ask some questions. Okay, go ahead.
So if the merger takes place, there will no longer be a tax rate for Pendleton. There will no longer be one for Fall Creek. It'd be merged. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
So how could that
So-
be if it's Pendleton becomes all of Fall Creek? Where
So
would Fall
right
Creek-
now, so maybe I didn't understand your question. So if there is a merger, there'll be a tax rate that is paid by Fall Creek residents and the town of Pendleton residents, but it'll be varying tax rates, but it'll say on the tax bill, Pendleton Town.
But it'll
But
all
it'll
be
be
the same rate.
varying, no, it won't be all the same.
How would it not be the same rate? if it-
Because the Pendleton tax, or I'm sorry, the Fall Creek taxpayers will pay certain pieces of the total tax rate. So township administration, for example, that would be something that would be paid by the township residents. Township administration in general. Again, this is all in the detailed report, but there will be different rates, at least right now, as it's laid out now, for different taxpayers. I mean, it could have been set out that everybody paid the same tax rate. Well, then it wouldn't be tax rate neutral. You'd have people in Fall Creek Township paying more than they are paying now. And that's not what we were looking to do.
Has the DLGF ever approved that in in a merger before where
So,
the township people pay different than the
Yep,
town people?
yep,
They've approved that?
Zionsville was the first one to do it, and they had urban and rural rates. So yes, this is not anything out of the ordinary. And this, if this merger was to, go through, or you would decide to progress, you do have to submit a consolidation fiscal plan to the Department of Local Government Finance.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. The beginning says when 2 parties want to do this, so is it the township and the city are both for this, in favor of this, or what are the 2 parties that sparked this to happen?
I don't know. Excuse me, I don't know the answer to that question. I was just asked to do a financial analysis.
Okay.
I don't know if they're in favor of it or not.
Yeah, she's just the money person. The questions about the fiscal part, she's got your answer. All the other questions need to be directed either email or written or visit Mr. Resky and his office.
Does this have to be put to vote to the people?
Yes.
This is related to fiscal. So if you merge, if you decide to merge, the 2 bodies decide to merge, there's a whole bunch of steps that are laid out in state law. And basically, the township advisory and the town council would have to agree to do it. And then they would form a committee that would create a transition plan or reorganization plan. And you would talk about each one of those subjects. Like, what would you do with town council? Well, most likely we'd probably jump from 5 to 7 members. There would be new districts because all the township residents in the township, you'd have to reshuffle that according to state law on how you create your town council districts. So once you have that organization plan together, then you do a fiscal analysis where, just like what Paige has done, they'd come back in and look at what you decided as a group, as a collective group, right? Township and town residents. And then they would look at how that would impact fiscally your taxes. Then it goes back. So, and that's all has to be done in public hearing. Can't be done in secret and all that stuff that everybody's worried about. I think we're up to, by that point, there's 5 public hearings that have to have happened for the process to continue. And then it goes to a referendum, and the referendum is on the organization plan. So there would be a hearing on the organization plan, and you get to see what all the different, like, how are you going to handle stormwater? How are you going to handle street maintenance, police? And then it goes to referendum, and then both, when it's a town and a township, it has to be 50% plus one person from the town have to agree to do it. Then 50% plus one person from the township has to agree. If it's 75 and 25, and it's not, it's 30 again, or 70 against and 34 in one of the bodies, for example, then it's done. Both residents, groups of residents have to agree to do it by more than 50%. Their votes are separate. They're counted separate. Yep. And then it happens in a general election. It's a referendum in a general election. Then you're still not done. So if it passes, then Scott DeShong would love this. Then you still have to have another general election where you elect the new body town council. So most likely 7 members. So people that have worries about, well, the town's just going to increase the rate. Well, you got to remember, most of that town council by state law is going to be made up of the people voting is going to be more township residents than town residents. So that's another check and balance that you would see. Okay, look, I know I'm the target of all this, but I get that, you know, I'll take it on. I got broad shoulders, you know, the Marine DI didn't beat me up for a reason, you know, they wanted to make me tough. No, but I'm just trying to be funny, but okay, so how this all started, I've talked about this. Township residents who were starting to have water problems in the north came to us and said, can we come into Pendleton? And I said, that's a long way to run a water main if it's not our street. And then a lot of them got concerned about Anderson. When Anderson started looking for wells in Fall Creek Township, they're worried about development being voluntarily annexed into Anderson, that would be Fall Creek. And so they're worried about. No, that's not true. No, that's not true. The way it works, and a lot of towns are talking about this because the way the annexation laws are. A developer goes near the Anderson border and says, I need water. Anderson, you're the closest one. I've got 100 acres, I bought it. Anderson goes, no problem, we'll feed you water. But you've got to voluntarily annex your development into Anderson. The developer looks at that and goes, it's still, you know, in Fall Creek Township. It's still right now in Pendleton schools. So I get the benefit, right? And now I got my water. But for the people who live in that area, all of a sudden Anderson just creeped down a little bit. Then it happens again with another 100 acres or 200 acres that sells. So that's what they're worried about, right? But I think for me personally, what's important is I'm trying very hard as town manager to have a slow growth. And if we do have growth, that it's high quality growth. And I don't mean expensive growth. I mean where developers don't try and take advantage of the community. So if you look at that, and we put some things in place, the impact fees, right? Yeah. She's letting the heat out. So we put impact fees in place mostly to keep the town from going into debt as developers put pressure on the town to develop infrastructure. But more importantly, we put in strict standards so that sloppy subdivisions can't be built in the town, right? So if you think about it, if we put all those protections in place, it does no good if all around Pendleton, those sloppy subdivisions are put in because the county doesn't have those same standards. Not because they're evil or inefficient. It's because they're set up for county government. They're not set up for growth. And so what's best for, I think, the town is if we're all in this together to protect ourselves against this growth. Because I don't like it, I got to accept it, and I got to plan for it, right? Makes me sick to my stomach.
Can you tell us the story you told me today about the developer?
Oh, yeah. So are you talking about the developers? Yeah. So how does Scott Reski know this? Because we've had four subdivisions, proposed subdivisions walk away from the town after we put in the Unified Development Ordinance and the impact fees. They said, you know what? We love Pendleton. We know we can sell homes in Pendleton, but right now, if we go outside in the unincorporated areas that surround Pendleton, that's what we're going to target right now because they don't have the same standards and they don't have the impact fee. So we're going to start developing and talking to people who have developable ground and start buying it. So if you're in the township area, right now you're the target. You're targeted by developers because no impact fees and no good standards to keep sloppy subdivisions, monotonous subdivisions, and putting in streets that don't last long. So if you want to protect your rural living, why is this a win-win? If you want to protect your rural living, come under the town standards and protect yourself against sloppy growth, and then we all win, right? There's no financial gain. I know people want to start that rumor that we're in financial trouble. No, the town is in very strong fiscal shape, mostly because we have our own utilities. We weren't silly enough to sell our utilities like a lot of towns did. We kept them. We're able to pay for most of our normal general expenses. State Board of Accounts allows us to use utility money to pay for 70% of the town hall, 70% of my salary, 70% of the town council salaries. So that's the question. Why is this a win-win? It protects us against growth. Is it counterintuitive? Yes. Because most people aren't used to towns. If you come into a town, that means you're going to develop. And most towns do aggressively want to grow. But I think most people here, they want a cornfield to stay a cornfield as long as possible. And the only way you're going to keep those developers from gobbling up and giving really high prices right now, Top Ground in Pendleton, near 13 sold for $68,000 an acre. So if you have 100 acres, what is the real math real quick? 6.8 million. I'd be really tempted with you in a way. I mean, I'd have to think about that one. So that's the situation we're in. You bring that up, but when you do the reorganization plan, those things all get reshuffled. They can get reshuffled, you're right. No, you have to, by state law, you have to divide up the town council districts. Yes, yes, it would all be reshuffled. Yes, right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that was funny. Yeah. 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 Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. 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 So the last time the town annexed, this is before annexation was difficult. We set up rural and basically urban tax rate. There's different tax rates out in the ag. In fact, one of them, could you go to that real quick?
Yeah.
There's a Pendleton Ag, which is an agricultural area. Yeah. So I'll call it a cool thing just because I'm nerdy about government. But the cool thing is the fact that state law forces you to have a reorganization plan. And so all those things can be readdressed. So let's talk about stormwater. You brought that up. Still fiscally related. Don't shoot me, chief. So on the committee that is in charge of stormwater, what I would imagine they'd go through is sort of like they would have probably two rates: an agricultural stormwater rate and a developed area stormwater rate. The way we did it by state law in Indiana, when we established Pendleton's fee, is we looked at where all the flooding happens when it rains. Then we had an engineering firm come in and said it would cost this many dollars to fix it. And we listed all those projects. We assumed, I think, a 20-year plan, a 10-year plan, added up the dollars, divided it by the number of residents, by the number of months in a year, and it came out to $12. And it was actually, could have been 18. And we couldn't have state law, we couldn't have gone higher, but we actually reduced it down to 12. So I would imagine the committee would decide to do two different rate studies, one for the urbanized areas and one for the non-urbanized areas, because there's urban areas in Fall Creek Township in the unincorporated areas. And guess what? They have some flooding problems, especially Fall Creek Heights. Sure. Yeah. 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 Well, 2/3 of the people. Yeah. 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 No, you would, I would think you would look at all the, well, you list the projects by state law. You have to list the projects and then you raise the money to pay for those projects. So you would have to do it, right? Yeah. Oh, I know. Oh, believe me. Yeah. 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 Yeah, a lot of people from up there. It's a practicality issue, the way the legislature has set up things now for annexation. The only real way you can do annexation now is voluntarily annexation. Yeah, but the problem is you go into a subdivision, this guy agrees to, this guy agrees not to, this guy agrees to, this. There is, you could do involuntary annexation, but it's very clumsy and it's not really. So the attorneys tell us that it's no, don't go down that route because all it takes is one remonstration that succeeded and then you have to pay for all the fees and it's just so nobody's doing it right now because it's impractical. Yeah, it's not the building codes what I'm talking about. These are architectural standards. Like the example I like to give, look at a poorly built subdivision and look at the eaves. They'll be this wide. In ours, I forget what it is, but it's 12 or 18 inches, has to have an overhang. It's aesthetics, right? Go to a bad sloppy subdivision, there'll be a whole wall and there's one window or maybe no windows, or it's all vinyl. Right. Yeah, it does. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know if the county allows PUDs anymore. Everybody's gotten away from those PUDs. I don't know if the county has yet. Planned unit developments. Yeah, yeah. No, the only thing that's happened, so I think this is really, to me, has been really interesting. So township residents came to us and said, you know, we'd like to come into the town for these reasons. And I talked about them earlier. Yeah. People stopped me on the street, you know, and said, hey, look at this. So at the second meeting that we had, that Pendleton had just about growth. It was not about consolidating. That wasn't the subject of the meeting. But the first question out of the gate at all three meetings is, what about merger? Right? And we're like, well, we've had people talk to us, but we haven't done anything formal. And you're asking me the questions, right? The town hasn't done anything. This is the closest thing to anything formal we've ever done because the people at that second meeting over what the town was going to do about growth, the people for it were there. You could watch the videotape, it's posted. And then by the famous third meeting where everybody thought they were being annexed that night, showed up all angry. And the first thing that came up was, what about merger? We're against it. And in both those meetings, the people who are for and against, they asked us for a fiscal study. We said, okay, we'll do it. The town, I don't think the town's really not decided. I mean, until tonight, you know, I don't think we've really done any sort of formal analysis on whether this would be good for the town or not. Those people will tell me after that third meeting, they are not going to come to a township meeting and after the township meeting, they definitely said they were not going to come. Yeah. 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 Well, we're spending a lot of effort trying to protect the town against growth. So investigating this option, I think is a very smart thing to do. Why not gather all the facts instead of listening to hearsay, get some facts, get some professionals come in and let us, yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's exactly what happened. People came to us and said, would you look into merger? And of course, you know, a very vocal crowd came to us and said, the hell you will, right? So what do we, so it's like we're getting blamed for something township people wanted either for or against, but we're taking the heat for it, which I don't understand if you want to give it an honest look. What would you want us to say? Yeah. Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
As far as a Fisher or a Zionsville.
Right.
That's why
Right.
people live here.
Yep.
People who want to live outside of that. So I think.
I'm willing to sit down and talk with anybody about it, you know, the pros and cons. I've heard loud and clear some of the trepidations about coming into town, like being able to shoot your gun. You know, you can shoot your gun in town. Talk to some of the farmers that are already in town. They've been in town for over a decade now when the annexation happened. And they're sort of, the ones I talked to, they're sort of confused about the anxiety because they're fine with it. Let's go back to questions. Tim, did you have one? Okay, so impact fees. Impact fees are, we have system development fees are for development that is 4 or more houses. And then, so that's the fact that we have to expand water mostly if it's in town, because this is all in town now, right now. We have to expand the electric system. So if you do a development, then you're going to have to help build out that electric and water system, right? So then we have what's called impact fees. So Indiana state law allows, and we have park impact fees. State law allows you to go in and analyze, once again, you have to list the projects that would fix traffic congestion problems, not only as going forward. And so when we did an impact fee study, we assumed the town was a population of 20,000. Right? Remember, Fishers grew 30,000 in 1 decade. So we did assume we grew 14,000, and this is all within the current town limits, nothing to do with the merger. And then you list the projects to relieve the traffic jams. And some of the projects are extending Heritage Way North, Heritage Way South at the roundabout before traffic gets into town. It gives them alternate ways to get in, not cheap. And some other major roads that would need to be built to keep that traffic. I mean, we're at 6,000 and we got traffic jams. So you can imagine what we're going to be at 20,000. So you list the projects, an engineering firm puts together the cost, you divide by, it's the number of trips each house creates, which is in Pendleton 9 trips per day. And then you divide that out and you do the math, and it works out that for a residence, impact fee is $9,000. What I would imagine if we did or put together the reorganization plan is that we would reshuffle that and redo that and probably change the rules so that if it's like the example that some of you have been worried about, well, what if I have some farm ground, I want my son, my daughter each to build a house on that, but you want to hit me with this $9,000 impact fee for each house. Yeah, if you include the park, right? So, anyway, I lost my train. So you would probably go back, and part of the reorganization, we probably stipulate that it would have to be a subdivision. We divide a development that's like 12 or more homes, right? That would probably get hit with that impact fee. Yeah, that's right. It was developed for the town of Pendleton in town. Now, if that property that you have already had a house, and let's say it was demolished 50 years ago, that you don't get the impact fee because there was a home there. If you build a new one or remodel on top of an old one, there's no impact fee. It's about traffic generation. Yes. Yeah. You have to do the best practice is you do a new study every 5 years. And developers, trust me, they'll hit you to do a new study every 5 years. That will happen. But if you're bringing in a 500 person or 500 home subdivision, like it's happening in Hunsinger Farms, then that's going to impact the quality of life here in town if you don't do something about that traffic. Is there going to be a handful of people who had a house on Broadway and then decided to buy a new house out there at Hunsinger Farms? Well, yeah, it's going to impact them. But that's where development has to pay for its development. People that already live here should not have to pay for the new development coming in. You're already going to pay with an impact on the quality of life and the loss of what Pendleton used to be like or what your rural living used to be like, right? Shouldn't they pay for that? Why should the people that live here have to pay for somebody to move in and pay the price for somebody that wants to move in? If they want to move in, they don't like the impact fee, then don't pay it. But I guarantee if you go to Fisher's, you're going to pay just as much or more. Yes, sir. You had one. Sure. Thank you. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Got me thinking.
My question was referencing the revenues coming in. When I look at numbers, I look for things that are out of bounds. And I guess my question is, why are all the other communities reducing or getting decreases except for Pendleton? Is that just because I understand, the county will be losing money, but Pendleton will be gaining because of the roads. But there's quite a bit of difference in all of that. Why is Pendleton getting so much more increase and all of the other communities decreased?
Are you asking about the gas taxes or the local income
Yeah,
tax?
the state distributed revenues on your back sheets.
Okay, so so with the gas taxes, I guess we'll start with that one. It really has to do with the combination of road miles and population. So there is a specific calculation. So because this merger would result in both an increase in population to Pendleton and an increase in road miles, that is going to shift some of those gas taxes primarily from, I shouldn't say primarily, but partially from the Madison County unit, but then also from the other municipalities. There's two separate calculations when it comes to gas taxes. One is a county calculation and one is a municipal calculation. So those calculations are done separately. And with the local income tax, the increases there to the town of Pendleton is a direct result of the fire territory and the increase in levy associated with that fire territory. This person in the, yes, he has a question and he's,
Going, when you said at the
Go ahead.
beginning that you originally didn't think you could make this happen and be levy neutral,
yep,
but because of this fire protection plan, that made it possible. Shouldn't the fire protection money be for fire protection? Or how did the fire protection territory make all this magic happen and possible without taking money from pots